All right. What's good, everyone? Today's show is one that's been in the works for some time, so let's get it. I am your host, Osid, and this is Rings and Things, the home of Lakers exceptionalism, Lakers greatness, and where banners aren't optional, they're tradition. With me today, I have the one and only Johnathan Hernandez of the Lakers Legacy podcast. And if you haven't already, please go check out his Twitter page, his YouTube channel. This man is working overtime. He's crushing it with all the videos from player breakdowns, acquisitions, cap space, and my favorite, his Moneyball targets. He's always ahead of the curve. I've always noticed, and you've had that eye and knack in finding talent before they get big. So, John, man, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, Omar. Thanks for having me back. I am good. Yeah, if you ever want to hear me talk an hour about DJ Wilson's play in the G League, you've come to the right place. That's one of my misses for sure, but I have had some hits in the past. I'm glad to be on, man. It's been a while. We've been trying to schedule some time together for a hot minute now, but I'm glad we're able to do so now that the dust has sort of settled on the offseason. It's been, I don't want to say crazy. It's taken pretty much a month to get here. I know fans wanted it to get here much sooner, like the collection that we've assorted here. But looking at it, taking a step back now, I think we're all pleasantly surprised at where we currently sit. So I'm glad to be able to talk about things now that everybody's a little bit more cool, calm, and collected, now that they see things in hindsight.
Yeah. Let's dive right into that, right? So I think most fans, if you ask on the timeline, wanted everything done in overnight, pretty much, right? They wanted everything done now and fast. But I think the theme of the offseason was patience. And, the title of this thumbnail and the video today is, did Rob Pelinka cook this offseason? If you ask me, I didn't expect all the types of talent and skills and players that he was able to bring. But one of the themes that was present throughout all of this is patience, I should say. So I want you to kind of walk us through, what decisions and what options the Lakers had heading into the offseason. Because one of the big question marks was, we had no first round picks. We had the 55th pick, which, God knows what you can get at that unless you're Bronny James of last season's draft. But, aside from that, I want to understand, DFS was the other question that we had coming into the season. But then we had all these expiring contracts. We had very limited draft assets to our arsenal. But how were we able to acquire a DeAndre Ayton, Jake LaRavia? How were we able to acquire a Marcus Smart? And I'd like to also venture out and go and say that this is probably Rob's best offseason in using his NTMLE, the non-tax MLE, in being able to split that up. And if you have joined Johnathan's show on Lakers Legacy podcast, he has gone and reviewed the past few seasons of Rob's usage of that NTMLE. So, John, please give us a breakdown and walk us through, the theme that I'm trying to project out to the audience here. And that's just patience. And I think if you kind of take a step back, you're able to see a lot of the holes that we had kind of coming out of that big, Luka trade. We people often forget we moved not only a, perennial DPOY two-way center, we also moved away another starter from the lineup, which was our point of attack defender. And we were never able to obviously address that gap in midseason. So we had quite a bit of holes coming into the offseason. So take it away, man.
So patience, I almost have to take, I know you want me to take it from the starting point of the draft, but I almost have to take this back to last offseason when we literally did nothing. Do you remember the hysteria then? It's crazy that the hysteria was kind of similar this season because we did a lot of things, but the hysteria when we literally did nothing, I totally understood. But even last offseason, I was like, look, man, the Lakers don't have any assets, and what little assets that they do have, these teams are charging an arm, a leg, a third arm that you don't have. Like it none of it really made any sense. And even past last offseason, if you remember the trade deadline last year, what were the trades that were out there? Let's
Jeremy
trade
Grant.
Well, that was the offseason, right? But I remember let's trade Rui Hachimura and a 2029 first for Bruce Brown. Let's trade D'Angelo Russell 2029 first for Royce O'Neal DFS. Okay, we moved on to the offseason. God, we didn't do anything. We got, beat in the playoffs 1-5 to the Denver Nuggets. This is what happens when you don't do anything. And then we did nothing that offseason. I understand the frustration. Fans were losing their minds. Now, do you remember what our record was 15 games into last season, keeping the same roster, but just changing the coach? Do you remember, Omar?
No, I don't remember.
Okay, so 15 games into the season last year, after having done nothing all summer, and remember, the Lakers' plan was we're going to work internally with a new coach, and we're going to try and wait and see come trade deadline to see what our options are. 15 games into the season last year. Oh, hold on. Okay, so I think Omar hopped off, but I'll keep going. 15 games into the season last year, the Lakers were third in the West with a 10-4 record. The roster did nothing and still had Christian Wood, Cam Reddish, Jackson Hayes on their team, and the Lakers were third in the West. So the fact that we did a lot of things this offseason and fans were still freaking out that we hadn't improved the roster, I only have to go back to last season to show you it kind of feels like they did the wait and see approach pretty correctly last season, right? If you can tread water and be third in the West, and then even up to the point where we made our first trade with D'Angelo Russell for Dorian Finney-Smith, the Lakers were fourth in the West at that time. I think that was like right before the new year started when we traded D'Angelo Russell for DFS, right? And to prove that patience worked, DFS's trade price went down, right? Instead of D'Angelo Russell in 2029 first, it became D'Angelo Russell in 3 seconds. And then what ended up happening after the DFS trade, we got Luka Doncic with the 2029 first that everybody was trying to trade last trade deadline for Royce O'Neal and Dorian Finney-Smith. The same 2029 first that fans were trying to include along with Rui Hachimura and D'Angelo Russell for Jeremy Grant and his remaining 3 years at $35 million. Even if you want to talk about patience with guys like Max Christie, I remember there were discussions by fans that offseason of trading Max Christie for whatever we could get. He ended up being like a pivotal piece to that Luka Doncic deal, and so fast forward to this offseason, and I'm like, we just came off of a season where, regardless of how you feel about how the year ended, and you have gripes about the Anthony Davis and LeBron James era not ending the way that you wanted it to end because the front office didn't do enough to help them. I think we can all agree about that. I mean, I've had you on before where we're both bemoaning the fact that we still haven't gotten AD a big, right? So I understand all those things, but literally looking back a couple months ago, we just did this whole patience pays off thing. We got Luka Doncic and all the prices went down, and we still have our 2031st first. We still have Dalton Connect. We still have, we still have Rui Hachimura and all of our expirings. And so fast forward to this offseason, draft night, day one, fans are losing their minds because Rob Pelinka can't get a damn pick. Day two, what happens? While the Orlando Magic, and I forgot which other team, while the Orlando Magic are trading 4 seconds just to get into the early 30s, Rob Pelinka takes his 55th pick, pays a bunch of cash to, I forget who the team is now, either Phoenix or Minnesota or the Sixers. That pick changed so many hands.
Yeah, it changed so many hands.
It went from Philly to Phoenix to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Rob Pelinka, all he did was take the 55th pick we already had, pay some cash, and we moved 19 spots down, and we get the exact type of player that we needed, a 3-and-D explosive tweener forward.
Yeah.
And so patience paid off there. You fast forward just a couple of days later, like day one of free agency, and the Lakers actually moved pretty quickly, with an unexpected name. We got Jake LaRavia, and we're like, oh, okay, interesting. But obviously that came in conjunction with losing DFS, so I understand sort of, conflicted feelings there. Fans were losing their minds because why isn't the DeAndre Ayton signing? Why hasn't it been announced yet? Why was Jake LaRavia signed first? We had to wait. I think we had to wait like 3 days for the DeAndre.
We had to wait. It felt like a century of in terms of timing.
But inevitably, patience paid off. And if you had to give, I honestly, there's no way Rob Pelinka didn't know, regardless of how long it took. I feel like that was almost like optics on everybody's parts to be like, hey, they've been hearing smoke that we're going to get you for a while now. Just cool it on the announcement.
It's the Lakers. They've already gotten slapped on the wrist before for, intervening in these types of situations. So,
it's like, let's drum up the drama a little bit and make it seem like you're like thinking about all these other options, right?
It's Hollywood, baby. I'm sure Rob Lowe, Rob Pelinka was not thinking about that.
So we ended up getting DeAndre Ayton, right? And then after that, fans still weren't satisfied because they wanted the consolidation trade to happen. And they've kind of moved the goalposts now because Rob Pelinka actually made a trade at the deadline. Now they're like, but he hasn't made a trade in the offseason since Patrick Beverley. It's like, who cares? That's a bad trade. The last trade he made was a bad trade. The other last trade he made in the offseason was also a bad trade. Do you remember what it was? It was for Russell Westbrook, which is further proof that you should not be trading in the offseason, especially if you have wasted assets away like the Lakers have. So that's a ding on Rob Pelinka, right? Like he wasted our 2023 NBA draft, and now you want him to overpay again for insert X wing here. Let's call him Andrew Wiggins. And you can't double down on your mistakes, So for me, Pelinka is actually learning from his stupidity and holding off, because it has paid off for him in the last year and a half or so, 2 years. We literally have the proof, but I think fans just want and I understand it, but fans just want the dopamine hit of it needs to happen right
100%,
now.
100%. Yeah.
But here we are. We've got DeAndre Ayton, Jake LaRavia, Adu Thiero, and then the cherry on top of the sundae a couple days ago, we got Marcus Smart, right? Even that small thing, even after having gotten DeAndre Ayton, fans were like, why did we sign Jackson Hayes? Why did you give him a raise? We lost our BAE. Make the consolidation trade now to free up a roster spot so that we can sign Precious Achiuwa. Well, thank God we didn't sign Precious Achiuwa. We wouldn't have the BAE to sign Marcus Smart, Patience pays off is what I'm trying to say. And every step along the way, we have seen it pay off, regardless of whether or not you want to say Rob Pelinka, like backed his way into it or fell ass backwards into luck. Sure he did, but the saying about luck, it's like preparation is involved with how lucky you get. The timing is there. Luck is timing meets preparation essentially. And the preparation that Rob did was not doing the dumbass trades that you wanted him to do every step along the way, just because you wanted to see a trade happen right then and there.
Yeah. And I think so. Like the takeaway here is if he had made any of those trades that the fans were clamoring for, we would never get freaking Luka Doncic. We would not have the assets available to get Luka, right? And be able to start this next era of basketball. I don't think fans realize or understand that this doesn't just happen. When you're kind of ending an era of a team where you have, your superstars and all-stars, it usually takes a little bit of time. We just went through that not too long ago, right? When Kobe retired and we were kind of going through the dog days of seasons and always watching the lottery odds and the seeing where we can land there. But I think I want to stay on this. I want to stay on the Pelinka part and in terms of how fans, love to talk about how lucky he is and whatnot. I think one thing, so two things can be true. When you have a superstar that's in their prime, like a Luka, who is a all-world type player and a playmaker, it's just natural that players like a Marcus Smart or DeAndre Ayton, their eyes are just going to light up when they're in this type of situation where they're either looking to kind of rehab their reputation or they're looking to win, right? It's kind of in tandem, right? It's like, okay, you have Luka, but you also have Pelinka, who's kind of managing the relationships in the background. Why the hell does anyone think we signed Jackson Hayes? Who's his agent? How did and to kind of round all of that, how did Jackson Hayes perform when he was put into a starter role? Right? Like he actually like at certain points in the regular season, he was putting up formidable like starter minutes and starter stats for a team where we actually fit the kind of scheme that JJ wanted, right? Like a switch heavy scheme. He was able to kind of play on the perimeter and move his feet and whatnot. So the one I think factor that I think I've only seen you kind of talk about is this is the first time Pelinka has really looked to split the MLE, the full MLE. And I think he hit like a home run. Like I'm not sure if other teams, I'd have to kind of do like a deep dive if other teams kind of use their full MLE versus splitting it. But I'm pretty sure in terms of value from getting Jake LaRavia and DeAndre Ayton with splitting the MLE, it must be the best use of it for this particular offseason. And again, that's kind of learning from his mistakes of being a GM and kind of making those, rash decisions and signings off of like recency bias type players and plays. So here's the other thing that I want to talk to, like, just kind of speak to the fans about. What's their level of, judgment on Pelinka, right? Like if you think Pelinka is mediocre and he's like at this level, then why do you kind of consistently expect him to kind of make these moves that, you see like a Clippers organization that's like really like, really by the book and making those kind of calculated decisions on being able to win now and compete now, but also, have all the open books open in 2027. But I think if you look at it from a big picture standpoint, I mean, I think Rob Pelinka and the front office are doing that. It's just that they're kind of in that transition period where, we're still paying a 40-year-old LeBron James. He takes up a big part of the cap space. He's still worth that money. I'm not taking a shot at LeBron, and LeBron fans don't come for me, but it's just like kind of massaging and maneuvering it politically in the right way is what Pelinka is doing. And I think that's the right way and the right approach to do it. I think the bigger picture is once Mark Walter comes in, and I think if there is like an infusion of additional kind of like scouts, the European scouts, and all these other kind of roles added to the front office, I think then you can kind of really put your magnifying glass on Pelinka, because at that point, then there's way more eyes, way more people, way more, people on the boots on the ground doing that legwork. Like for instance, like my favorite segment of yours is kind of finding that money ball type signings, right? Like I can't expect Pelinka and maybe 2-3 other guys to be everywhere, right? And it's fair to be, understanding of that. So just talk to me about how Pelinka has kind of changed and just improved upon, relationships is one thing, right? In terms of the focus, but then also like learning from his mistakes.
Well, I think people confuse me when I try and push back on giving Pelinka credit for anything. I think people confuse me for someone who thinks he's the most optimal GM that the Lakers could have. I do not think that.
Yeah,
I think he's a very.
No. You're very measured with your talking points.
I think he's a very mediocre GM who does good things. I do too. Who does good things sometimes and really bad things other times. Mm-hmm. Literally, if you listen to me and my podcast, it's all on record. 2021, every single time I would hop on the mic, I was like, I hated the Russell Westbrook season with like such a passion, And so having that type of perspective coming out of it, the fact that he was able to pull us out of that era. And look, it didn't result in a championship for AD and LeBron James, but we made it to the Western Conference Finals that same year. That was still, I remember when we all believed that we could win it that season after beating the Golden State Warriors, okay? Yeah, that belief I still remember that feeling, even though it ended abysmally, And so that, again, the Russell Westbrook trade tanked the LeBron James AD era. That's just facts. A lot of people were involved in that move, not just Rob Pelinka, not just LeBron James, not just AD, right? And the fact that we were able to sort of reset things a little bit with that little taste of the Western Conference Finals, Obviously, there were other mistakes along the way. We did not utilize Malik Beasley and Mo Bamba's contracts correctly. We didn't re-sign them in order to open up the non-taxpayer MLE for Gabe Vincent, who we still have to deal with to this day. There were mistakes made along the way, but I think there is a line between, are you carrying water for Rob Pelinka? You always defending him. There's a line between that and Rob Pelinka doesn't know the salary cap. He lucks into everything. It's like, I'm in the middle. I don't think that Pelinka lucked into every good move the Lakers have ever made. And is also, I don't think he's 100% responsible for every move that goes poorly. And in the meantime, when you're waiting for moves to happen, I do give a relative amount of benefit of the doubt to the people doing the work behind the scenes. Because to your point, I mean, Rob Pelinka used to be an agent, right? If there's one thing that he excels at, it's
relationships,
whether that's kind of slimy or really what, I don't even know what the word is, whether it's slimy or slimier, but that's how he got the Luka Doncic trade. People are going to continue to say Rob Pelinka lucked into that trade. How about knowing Nico Harrison for a decade plus and establishing that relationship with him? You cannot on the one end say, nobody likes Rob Pelinka, that's why he can't get any deals done in the NBA. And then all of a sudden see one of the most craziest trades in the NBA go down because of Rob Pelinka's relationship with somebody. It doesn't make sense, right? And so even with regards to this new Luka Doncic era, right? The one thing that Rob Pelinka has done well is do his agent massaging with WME and Luka Doncic. He knows who he has to cater to now. It's Luka and his team. That is why Jackson Hayes got re-signed. And that is why you give Jackson Hayes the standard raise for his third year of service on this team. Think about if you were in Jackson Hayes' position and you were working under contract on retainer for an employer, and they asked you to come back for the third year. You would be pissed if they didn't give you just the normal raise for the next year. That's all Rob Pelinka did, and yet fans were like losing their minds.
Oh my God. Did you see the crash out of him getting the non-trade clause? Like the timeline. So not only was the timeline on fire for that, the timeline was on fire that same night because we no longer had full access of the BAE. Which is again like, can we just take a step back and just wait to figure out what options are available to us in terms of where to spend the BAE? And I think probably the biggest name that was linked to the Lakers, and that's the other thing too. Like a lot of these names that get linked to the Lakers, it's always the Lakers get linked to so many names. Fans get excited about okay, we can bring in a DeAnthony Melton, or maybe we split the BAE and get DeAnthony Melton and Al Horford or something like that. But I think Rob kind of knew, just observing the horizons in terms of and even fans like us, I knew just looking at the Wizards roster, there's going to be cuts. They had 18 players rostered. So there's no way that they're going to be able to move all those contracts. And if you, and that's just us, we're just kind of we have our day jobs. We kind of just read between the lines and understand that. So you can only imagine what tips and source information, and actually the Lakers and the Wizards have done deals before. So you never know between the GMs and whatnot, what the conversations are behind the scenes. So 100% agree with that.
But yeah, I mean, to the point about Jackson Hayes, it's everything Rob Pelinka has done this offseason has actually been to appease Luka and his camp, because guess what's coming up? Extension talks. All of this to me makes sense. He gave Jackson Hayes the raise. This is Luka. Guess who brought in DeAndre Ayton and not Jake LaRavia, but guess who brought in DeAndre Ayton and Marcus Smart and recruited for him? People say that Rob Pelinka got lucky because Luka did the work for him. Guess who was rolling out the red carpet for Luka Doncic and his team? It was Rob Pelinka.
Yep.
He's doing what he should do in this situation. So even from that standpoint, people say he's just sitting on his hands, or that's absolutely not what he's doing. If anything, he's making sure that Luka and his camp feel very comfortable and at home in Los Angeles moving forward. And that's exactly what he should be doing. There are a lot of things that I wish Rob Pelinka could improve on, and especially like the Moneyball aspect of things. But it seems like, at least with our two ways, the past few years, he's handed the keys over to his scouting team, because the Lakers, and we'll talk about it later, have done a really good job, culling together, really intriguing and potentially valuable pieces on those two-way spots. And I don't want to jump everywhere, but to finish my point about, Rob Pelinka, everything he's done this offseason has been to appease the number one superstar, the face of the franchise moving forward. I know LeBron James fans don't want to hear that, but that's unfortunately where we're going. He does have to toe that line between his past relationship with Clutch, which he also did a good job of rolling the red carpet out for. That's why we had the Cam Reddishes of the world, and all that stuff.
Yeah, no. I mean, how many reclamation Clutch projects have we taken on in the past few seasons?
Why we signed THT to $10 million for 3 years instead of Alex Caruso, which, by the way, THT was one of my bad calls. But anyways, this is all part of the job. And I don't think anybody's talked about this yet, but even the DFS thing, right? I think fans who do not like Rob Pelinka will try and find any angle and slant that they can to not only discredit him, but use him as the scapegoat for something that they didn't like happen, right? Yeah. So obviously, I have no doubt now that negotiations with DFS clearly went sour, right? Now, the truth of how those negotiations went sour, I don't think has fully come to light, but I know that the main story that fans are going with is Rob Pelinka was bad-mouthing him to every GM in the league, and that's just bad business, Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm not even ruling out that may be the case, but what I want to know is, in this game of telephone that we play, could it be the case that Rob Pelinka was talking to another GM, like let's say you're GM X, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, dude. I don't know if we want to sign DFS upcoming because he just came off a surgery, and we're hearing from Luka's agent that DeAndre Ayton might be getting bought out. So I don't even know if we want to re-sign DFS. He's banged up. He's 31. What if Rob Pelinka is literally saying the most objective things of why we're okay with moving away from DFS, and then it gets to other, you know how the game of telephone works, right? It starts with the source, it goes down the line. By the time it gets to person number 5, oh my God, Rob Pelinka, that slimy son of a bitch, was saying DFS was hurt. It's like, yeah, everybody already knew DFS had surgery. Everybody already knew that DFS is going to be 31 years old. What is Rob Pelinka possibly saying that we don't already know? So for me, even I'm a little dubious about how was he bad-mouthing DFS to the point where it would even matter to any GM? To me, it's probably he was saying matter-of-fact things and they wanted to move on from him. And where negotiations actually soured was in the length of the contract. They didn't want to give him past 2 years. I'm sure they offered him the non-guaranteed on the 3rd year, but by that point, DFS was already disrespected. He said, I'll take the non-guaranteed on the 3rd year with another team because you should have given me 3 years guaranteed. They weren't going to do that, and I agree with them. So,
yeah, no, I 100% agree with that approach in terms of you always got to ask the question, who does this information benefit, right? So this story or this kind of information, how it's been aggregated or, whatever kind of mode it came in, it's 100% telephone, right? There's no other way about it. And I think, to kind of add to that layer of that, casual conversation that must have happened is I think Rob was also of the belief, and I think I kind of was too, in terms of just from a fan standpoint, that I didn't think there was probably going to be that much of a market for DFS because he's getting older. And then the ankle for me at that age and the style of basketball he plays, just super intense, balls to the wall. That's his calling card in terms of the defensive end. So that type of play, there's bound to be some sort of kind of, come down in terms of, post ankle surgery and age and maybe you start to see like kind of that down fall for his like athleticism, and I mean he's also at the end, kind of tail end of his prime, but I think that's what it is. And just to put a bow on all of this, I think all intents and purposes, I think this is probably one of Pelinka's better off seasons. I'd put this right under that Kawhi offseason pivot that he had. So, plan A was to obviously pull in Kawhi Leonard. And then he executed that plan B of, using all that cap space, which is the whole, this is the other thing too, is that like, there's all this plans and, information of like, 2026 and 2027 is with the Lakers plan to keep all this cap space open for like a Giannis or Jokic. That's obviously the fun kind of buzz names to add from the media standpoint, because you can get clicks and you can get the views. But if you actually go back in time, the Lakers were in that situation just a few years ago where they had this large amount of cap space. And what did they do? They were able to acquire complementary players in terms of like, slotting and correct kind of ranges, and really form and build a basketball team around. Then it was LeBron and AD, and what needs to happen now is Luka Doncic. That's the only way you're going to be able to kind of flip this on its head really quickly.
Even before that, if you remember when LeBron first came in that first year, we had a lot of cap space too. We made sure to only take in expirings. If you remember, we gave KCP like bloated 1-year deals like 3 years in a row.
Oh yeah,
just so that we could
that.
maintain that spot. And so even that helped with massaging the Anthony Davis trade to make sure that we could, I mean, the new CBA hadn't been enacted yet, but like we were able to do flexible things like trade for Anthony Davis and then also have a third max cap space available, which didn't end up working out with Kawhi Leonard, but ended up working out with Danny Green, KCP, Dwight Howard, Avery Bradley, etc. You don't get that type of flexibility. So 2019 is a perfect example of what I think the Lakers are going for. Fans are going to be like, they've struck out on the superstars so many times. We're going to go after another Kawhi Leonard. Yes, we're going to go after another Kawhi Leonard because we're Los Angeles. And guess what? Because we have that flexibility, if Kawhi Leonard doesn't work out, I'm pretty sure we can do a KCP, Danny Green, Avery Bradley plan C. That'll work perfectly fine, especially because we're kind of working from the ground up now from Luka Doncic. You do want to be in, I know fans are like antsy to be like, this LeBron James last year, we got to win the championship. Yeah, but I don't know. We reset our timeline a little bit. And I know Luka Doncic is the type of player that you can win a championship with every year. But unfortunately, given the state of where we're at right now, we do sort of have to wait and see whether we like it or not, because we have to see what works with Luka. We kind of know with what happened in Dallas, but we can't just get all of those pieces all at once.
It's not 2K. This is not 2K.
Yeah, we don't have the assets to, right? And so in lieu of doing that, we have to be flexible.
Exactly. And like the way this now, you kind of alluded to the CBA part. No one really gets signed in free agency. You need to be able to have all that cap space open so you can execute sign and trades, or you can kind of move salaries. Because if Maxey and all these guys don't get moved, we'll still have the ability to move them at a certain point. But that's what it is. It's just being able to have that flexibility. And then I think, like I said, I just kind of alluded to it, but Pelinka this offseason, he definitely hit like, enough singles, doubles, and triples. Like there was probably some home run moves, but you're never going to be able to get that in the offseason because it's always a seller's market. When you get to the deadline where teams are like, okay, I need to get off these contracts. Like I need to kind of like, I know where my team is at. We're either not making the play in. I don't really care about like this guy. I want to kind of focus and retool, maybe this second year player and see what this guy's got. Okay, let's move this starter out of my my roster and team and send him somewhere where he can get more burn. So I think Pelinka has done a solid job. Sure, of course. I mean, if he could get like Andrew Wiggins or that type of 3-and-D type player, but do I really want him to overpay or overspend when most likely Andrew Wiggins is going to be probably available at the deadline? Because Miami has already, they've been, towing him around. Like they've been trying to sell him as a shiny toy. Lots of teams are not biting on that. contract and that age. There's only a few teams that kind of fit his archetype and the way things are going. So, from getting younger, getting more athletic, finding some of those money ball types of players, like I think, Jake LaRavia on a 2-year contract at $6 million, that's a hell of a deal. Like, I don't think, that those types of deals that like Rob hasn't found those types of deals before. And I think he's definitely and I did a breakdown video, and I know you did too, so you can definitely plug it in, but I think he's going to overplay that contract 100%. Like, I think this is the right kind of role and scheme. And there's just so much that he brings to both sides of the ball that he's going to become a household name pretty quickly. So I think that's enough on the Pelinka, unless you got anything else. I know D Steven added a comment in terms of, we get excited about our roster most off seasons. And I think that means Pelinka's done a decent job. But I think, being patient and waiting for the right moves is way more important than just throwing all your eggs in the basket for the now, because you're still kind of in that transition period, which you kind of alluded to with LeBron and Luka. Go ahead.
I have one last Pelinka thing, and it's this. If there's one thing that Pelinka did wrong, I think it's not being. I understand actually why he did this. The one thing that he did wrong was his heat check trade after the Luka Doncic trade, because he tried to trade for Mark Williams, right?
Oh yeah,
that backfired on him, and he wisely rescinded that trade because that would have ruined our future. But in doing so, and in even making a trade like that, he sort of publicized to everybody what we were willing to give up. And now everybody wants that exact same package for probably like something that could strap us. Like if we had done, this is the thing that I'm holding fast to. This is like the sliding doors moment for me. One of the biggest sliding doors moment for me in Pelinka's tenure, outside of the Russell Westbrook trade and the JHS 2023 draft miss. It's this one. Because if we had been stuck with Mark Williams,
oh my God, yeah,
we would have no assets whatsoever. And we would be forced to pay him his next contract.
Yeah.
And then Luka Doncic is stuck with a Mark Williams who may still only be playing 40 games a year. And that would have been disastrous. So I'm glad he backed out of it. But if there was anything that I could kind of ping Pelinka for, it's like going through with that type of deal in the first place and publicizing what we were willing to give up, because now we can't get a fair deal. Everybody's like, give us Dalton Connect and the 2031st first and a pick swap, all unprotected. It was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that for Andrew Wiggins, dude. You just did it for Mark Williams. Like, yeah, well, we made a mistake, and they're still going to say, but you still did it, so we're going to ask you for it. So that's one thing that I'll kind of like ping him for. But other than that, yeah, I think he's slowly starting to learn from his mistakes.
Yeah, so I definitely, I think that's a good one. I totally forgot about that one. But I think, so let's talk about the roster. I think I really like how there's a clear theme. Like most of the players, I'd have to do a count, but outside of LeBron, a lot of our players are really young. Like they're sub 27. We're starting to add, more youth, more athletic, type players. There's still players that, we'd love to see, on another team like Gabe and those expiring contracts. But I think we're already expecting that to kind of turn over in itself. But I think this is the first offseason where I feel like going into the season, like we have a pretty balanced roster. Like there's always been, like last season, for example, we went into the season with D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves. I was like, oh shit, we're going to do this thing again. Right. And we kind of talked about like why we had to go that way. But like, this is one season I feel like, okay, most of the players in terms of the rotation and the starters, like everything makes sense. And, you approach game at a time and you continue to improve as a roster and cohesion and whatnot. But I think it will allow us to get real-time data and information on what exactly we need to address. And what's the kind of, like, we all have like a theoretical idea on what kind of is needed, but we don't know how Jake LaRavia is going to kind of fill into his role. We don't know if he'll flash, right? And I think Marcus Smart is obviously a big question mark in the sense that I don't question his ability or his skills and how he's going to fit into the team. Like he's the perfect archetype of what we're looking for this Lakers team. And I think the injuries are one thing. Maybe it's all kind of like, okay, situational. Like he was on two really bad teams. Who knows what was what and what's rooted in reality? But I think really I've started to kind of think about like, okay, how do we set up the roster, especially since like we just added Marcus Smart. So I want to venture to you in predicting next year's starters first, and then how you would roll it into the second unit in terms of the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious answer is what everybody's been proposing, which is just start Marcus Smart next to Austin Reeves.
Yeah.
And that makes sense to me. I don't think there's any iteration that makes sense to me where Austin Reeves is coming off the bench just because it's a contract year and you want to play nice with Austin. He already turned down the extension for obvious money reasons. So we kind of got to assuage him and his agency, which is probably why we signed Jake LaRavia this next year unless we find a trade for him. At that point, do whatever you want with Austin. But I don't think we're going to find a trade for him. I don't think we want to trade him. So in light of that, Austin is starting the rest of the way through. He's going to be closing nearly every game, whatever Austin wants. Yeah. Austin gets this season. I'm perfectly fine with it. He earned it with his 20-5 season last year, even though I know he struggled in the playoffs. So yeah, the Marcus Smart starting lineup makes sense to me. I think if there was like a second option that I'd sort of be strongly leaning towards, this is all kind of like pending. I'm going to heavily caveat this, but I still would like to see, especially if he's healthy, I would like to see Vando with the starting unit. Yeah. The OG starting unit of like, I guess it would be Austin, Luka, Vando, LeBron, and DeAndre. Because Vando, to me, if you remember the Western Conference Finals 2023 team, and even the year after that, like anytime we had Vando with like four other offensive players, like everything worked. Even with if he was able to hold up D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves together, I mean, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves. I know DeAndre Ayton isn't the defensive force that Anthony Davis is, but actually, I have a breakdown video coming out of DeAndre Ayton. Actually, he's a very good rebounder, and when he wants to be, I mean, I'm not going to say he plays like Anthony Davis. He can play like Anthony Davis defensively, but I am going to say kind of sometimes. And then offensively kind of sometimes as well,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Just think of like, think of DeAndre Ayton as like Christian Wood trying to morph into Anthony Davis. And sometimes he looks like Anthony Davis. Sometimes he looks like Christian Wood, but like, he's a good player, is what I'm trying to say. You get 60 to 70% Anthony Davis every game and 30% Christian Wood, whatever that means. But with that said, I think even with Jared Vanderbilt's like offensive deficiencies and all of that, I feel like he would be a pretty seamless fit if he's healthy. And you only have to play him like start of the first, start of the third, and that's pretty much it, So, but I still would probably go with like the consensus of Marcus Smart, Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic. That's health pending, obviously. If Marcus Smart is who he has been the last two seasons, and I know we caveat the Grizzlies seasons as well because they were like tanking at the end there, and so I think they were just shutting guys down left and right. And Marcus Smart's injuries were more knick-knack pileups than anything super serious. But I can also see where Marcus Smart, just like Dorian Finney-Smith, has accumulated a ton of wear and tear on his body. And so if Marcus Smart moving forward to get the best out of him is only going to be like a 25-minute player, then, maybe we do need to reconsider just like shoehorning him into that starting spot, especially if you want to close with Marcus Smart. So that's the only other, like, it's not even a pushback. It's like, if there was another starting lineup that I would consider, would probably be Vando, because he's very low maintenance. Maybe too low maintenance, but I just feel like he maybe helps knit that highly offensive, in terms of they have offensive firepower group together.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you in terms of what the starters should look like. I think before Marcus Smart came into the fold, I think Vando, had an opportunity to make a case to be able to be reinserted into the lineup because, like you said, if you go back to that season when we made that trade, where we traded away Russell Westbrook, Vando was inserted into the lineup, and immediately you saw this defense. Like, if you go back and just, if you want to have some fun for like 10 minutes, if you go back and look at his defense on Luka Doncic in that game where we made that ferocious comeback, it's like some of the best defense like you will see one-on-one. So the thing too that I'm excited about with the fact that we have Ayton on the team is I think there's going to be a lot of drop coverage. I hope a lot of drop coverage being played on the defensive end, which allows Vando to be able to play that kind of like wreak the havoc type defense. So that's even more of a reason, to your point, to be able to deploy him on a starting unit that already has so much offensive skill, right? And I think people will see pretty soon. And I'm also doing a breakdown video on Ayton, but like the amount of offensive skill he has and the difference in offense there's going to be, you kind of need that fourth guy to just be that dirty work and, defensive hustle and put you on, the best player on the other team type of guy. So I think the cool thing is this is one of the first off seasons that he's healthy and he's able to kind of really work on his game. He's not rehabbing an injury, which is always a huge kind of, people always gloss over it. But like when you're a role player and if every off season it's something where you're just always rehabbing an injury, it's always hard to get back into what is considered prime for you or whatever your role is. So I'm excited for him. And, if we kind of are able to get that Vando back, I think that's a huge, huge lift for us. I think I'll ask you this because, we're pretty much in alignment with like the talking points I was going to bring in with the starters unit. And I think Smart makes a lot of sense there. And it makes no sense to obviously bench Reeves, knowing what we know, right, from the agent side and also it being a contract year. Rui has been a topic, right? So obviously, if we do put in either a Smart or a Vando in the starting lineup, now we bench Rui, who has been an excellent starter and play finisher, and he played really well alongside different lineup combinations when it comes to the starters. But he's seen a dip in terms of his production coming off the bench. My thought process is, my logic is, in order to kind of keep things balanced, because the roster coming into this next season is so balanced, let's try to stagger some of our starters so that you can still be able to have those synergies, whether it's kind of like a Reeves, Rui, and a third guy, could be Smart, Laravia, I don't know, something like that. But you're able to kind of still maintain some of those synergies that Rui has been so able to kind of produce from the starters side of it. But now he's being able to do it from the second unit and also being able to attack second unit. So I want to get your thoughts on that because there's been some topic and conversation and debate on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with Rui coming off of the bench. To your point about staggering, I would have him be like, quote unquote, the first guy off the bench, probably along with like Jake LaRavia and maybe Jackson Hayes. So I would do a quick 3 off, or maybe, I don't know. All I know is I would prioritize Rui and Jake LaRavia first off the bench so that Rui can be attached to Luka. And I would obviously Rui would be coming in for LeBron James. That just like makes the most.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's an even swap. Like LeBron, I think last season when Luka joined, he was coming off the 6-minute mark. So Rui's probably instantly getting thrown in there.
Jake makes sense to me because he is, if you remember, I mean, it's a small sample size, but I believe Dalton Connect and Luka Doncic had a very good 2-man grouping in terms of their net rating last season. And so if we don't think Dalton wants to play basketball next year, his defense just isn't there, then, and we signed Jake LaRavia for obviously. So like I would put Jake LaRavia coming off the bench along with Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. And then in that lineup, I'm okay all of a sudden bringing Jackson Hayes because I want Jackson Hayes attached to Luka as well because they had great chemistry, at least in the regular season. So I think that's how I would sort of play things. It's interesting because the Lakers improved their depth. And so if for whatever reason Redick wanted to do a full line change, I think he could pretty competently. I don't think he will because it makes sense to stagger. But even just looking at the 5-man combination
should,
that
yeah.
you can come up with coming out of the bench, it's kind of interesting, So I don't think he's going to play Gabe for sure just because he loves Gabe and Gabe is a professional. But like, to me, there are scenarios where you don't really need to because you still got to find time for Jake LaRavia. You got to find time for Vando and Rui.
Yeah.
And are we really going to ice Dalton Connect like this early in the season if we're trying to recoup even his trade value if you're thinking of him as an asset? So it's like, to me, the odd men out are the guys we've been trying to trade in Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleber. The tough thing is we know that JJ Redick is going to give Gabe Vincent time. So in that respect, that time is going to come from any time that Dalton Connect may get, any time that Jake LaRavia should be getting, any time that you want to see Bronny James start to get. So yeah, that'll be the tricky thing to monitor, I feel like, lineup wise, because in our heads, it's clear. Oh, Gabe Vincent doesn't get any minutes. In reality, we know he's going to get 15 minutes because he's like the coach's favorite until he's traded. So
exactly. Let me ask you this question. So I agree. I think Vando needs to get those minutes, and then the rest of those guys. And I think Gabe's definitely going to play. There's no way around it. I think in terms of just following orders and instructions and whatever the game plan is for that day, he's just going to kind of fit the T for that. So it helps having that type of player out there. I get it. Maxi Kleber, he played in the playoffs. So whenever he was medically cleared, by the doctors and whatnot, JJ threw him out there. So, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know what, if he still has juice left, but do you think he makes the rotation?
I think maybe situationally, like I'm not going to rule anything out because, I mean, Maxi Kleber, if like just on paper, just like his skill set, right? It's like a poor man's version of what we would have hoped to get from Al Horford. And they actually shoot the same. Like I actually did a Maxi Kleber breakdown video before he returned to the Lakers. And
does he have a set shot too?
Yeah, set shot. It's like a wide stance, set shot, high arc. It looks awkward, but it's fluid and it goes in, and then he's really good at attacking closeouts. He's surprisingly very athletic and just like built solidly. So if he's healthy, I'm not going to rule anything out, but I think it should only be situationally just because.
How old is he? Does he still have?
He's only like 30, I think early 30s. But the thing with Maxi is like, he's not part of the Lakers' future. And so he would really need to almost be having an all-star campaign to be getting any sort of like promised minutes. Like things would have to like go drastically wrong for JJ. And I guess things did go wrong in the playoffs, I guess. But that was, I don't think that was the right decision. So who knows? I can't rule anything out because of JJ Redick as well. And because of what we literally have seen. But yeah, I mean, again, he could help if he's healthy because his skill sets like do align with something different than what we currently have, like a spacing big who's sort of like mobile and can move his feet. But I just wouldn't view him as anything more than if like LeBron is out one night or like Rui is out, then Maxi gets some time. But he shouldn't be like even like a 5-minute permanent fixture on the rotation. I know fans want to see him play, and I understand the logic because again, like his skill set on paper makes sense, but everything else outside of that doesn't make sense because he is the expiring contract that is going to need to go out. If we're investing time in Maxi Kleber and we know he's going to go out in a trade, that doesn't make any sense to invest anything in him. So
yeah. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I can't wait for, training camp starts, and I can't wait for the reports and sources that are coming out of training camp. Maxi Kleber is having an incredible training camp, and watch out, his he's playing with the twos. You never know. That those media reports are always well timed. I think we're both aligned in terms of predicting the starters and the rotation. I think the main takeaway for me is I think, you know, the roster being balanced, and then also being able to kind of like pick and prod like the different kind of lineup combinations. There's probably a lot of combinations that will be interesting to monitor as the season goes on, which will definitely be fun to kind of evaluate as we go on in the regular season. All right, so let's move on to summer league, something that I really enjoy, and hopefully one of these years you and I can both go to the summer league,
Yeah, that'd be fun.
because I mean it's far from me, but definitely worth it in terms of just the access that you get to the games, the players, and whatnot. So let's talk about the summer league. So we had our unfortunately Adu Thero didn't play, and I was so excited to see him play, just like the film that I saw, because he was never on my radar in terms of like the types of players. I kept messaging you. I'm like, hey, what are the types of guys that you've been analyzing and viewing and whatnot? And obviously as they kept moving up, things kind of the goalposts changed and whatnot. So it would have been nice to see him, because I think that type of environment, like if you're like a 1% athlete, like you just thrive in those types of environment, like definitely for the highlight dunks and whatnot, because defense is definitely optional when it comes to the summer league. So, but let's talk about Bronny James, Dalton Connect, Christian Coloco, who fortunately we were able to bring back in within our two-way program. He's definitely shined for me. Definitely improved and looks really good out there. And then Chris, our new Chris Mignon, our new two-way. So take it away.
Yeah, I mean, Summer League was interesting because we were all hyped to see Dalton Connect sort of, build upon a very rocky up and down rookie season, but he definitely showed that he belonged in the league, obviously. But it kind of just felt like, I mean, he rebounded a little in the regular season, right? When he got time, and we thought, oh, maybe he'll actually be in the playoff rotation. He played off Luka well. Maybe he kind of shrugged off all of the messy trade deadline back and forth sort of thing. And then it just seemed like he was in that same haze kind of post trade deadline last season. And for whatever reason, he didn't look as engaged. He didn't look like he worked on the things he should have worked on, either defensively or even ball handling wise. At the same time, I'm going to give him a little bit of grace just because, I mean, it wasn't the best environment for him to thrive. And we didn't really even have, Bronny didn't play every game. We didn't have like a true point guard on the floor. DJ Stewart was more of like a scoring point guard. I feel like if Quincy Olivari had played with our team, like Dalton would have done better. Like Quincy, I mean, played well for the Brooklyn Nets, and he was definitely more of a point guard than anything that we had on our summer league team. So I kind of wish that he had sort of played with us. So Dalton Connect kind of struggled because, one, he wasn't as engaged as he usually is, but also he wasn't being set up by guys like Luka Doncic. He didn't have the same spacing in the NBA that he does to sort of do his little hop, step, hang, dribble into like the jump shot. And so he was never really able to find a rhythm. And so I mean, it's not good, don't get me wrong, but I kind of flush it down the toilet, and I'm willing to see what happens if he's doing this same stuff in preseason with NBA talent, setting him up and spacing wide open for him, then I'm going to be like, okay, maybe this guy's checked out. We need to like trade him as soon as possible. But this guy still had the second most 3-pointers made last season out of all the rookies besides Jalen Wells. So, I mean, like he had tied the rookie record for most 3-pointers in a game, so it's like, it's easy to let the recency bias kind of like cloud your judgment 100%. On a player. Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't a good summer league. That's all I can say about Dalton Connect. Bronny James, it was a good summer league. You kind of wish he was more efficient than he was. You kind of wish the turnovers weren't as high as they were. But all I'm looking at with Bronny James is like his confidence level, his improvement ball handling wise and playmaking wise. And those things all kind of came to fruition. Like if you remember summer league last season, he could barely make a chest pass to a guy 8 feet next to him. And here he's like dancing around, hitting step back threes, like hitting Christian Coloco for these nice like pick and roll bounce passes for dunks. Like it was night and day for Bronny. And so if the Lakers can siphon off some minutes to him this season, I think it would be smart to just see where he's at, because like lo and behold, a player who almost died on the court because he had a heart attack needs more than a year to sort of catch his bearings, So good on Bronny James for, showing out and proving that he is an NBA player, and that picking him at number 55 was more than fair. If not more than fair, like the Lakers probably should have gotten picked higher, And then, Christian Coloco. I'm glad the Lakers have re-signed him to his 2-way contract. I honestly would have given him the standard contract that Jordan Goodwin got, but it allowed us the flexibility to maintain a roster spot because Christian Coloco is still a 2-way, et cetera, et cetera. I think eventually that guy, we need to capitalize on all the work that we've put into him and standardize him eventually once that consolidation trade happens, because I'm super high on just like his motor, his ability to learn. This summer league, and I released like a breakdown video on this as well. Like apart from his defense, which he was phenomenal, I think he had the most blocks in the Las Vegas Summer League, total blocks. And then he was like 3rd in blocks per game. Outside of like the block shots though, he's like great positionally when it comes to defense. And he has like a motor that you can't really teach. So when you have that motor alongside that length and sort of that defensive IQ, that's great physical clay to work off of. And when you compare him to, unfortunately, a guy like Trey Jameson, who does have the motor, but not any of like the skill and mobility and sort of know-how, it was, to me, it was always been sort of night and day between him and Jameson. Yes, Jameson can move bodies out of the paint if that's what you need. But if you want more consistent, like this dude can play good team defense, good fundamental defense, and then also here and there show some real athletic, quick twitch pop on both ends of the floor, that's Christian Coloco. So the 2-way contract is well-deserved. And he's improved offensively with regards to sort of knowing how to be a 5-out big and operate the offense from the top of the key, which beginning of last season, that dude could not even hand the ball off to a guy, a foot away from him without getting it stripped or getting called for an offensive foul. And in the summer league, I saw him do a between the legs dribble into a dribble handoff to Cole Swider. Okay. So I'm like, all right, this dude's clearly working on stuff, and they have told him what he needs to work on to stay on the court. And then Chris Magnon, you said defense is optional in summer league, but not for that guy. That dude has got a motor, and that dude plays hard every single time. But on top of it, he can handle the rock. He's a guard. He can handle the rock. He can pass the ball. It is a little bit Marcus Smart-ish in the sense that, he doesn't have a 3-point shot right now. I don't think he's ever going to be a 3-point shooter. But if I could compare Chris Magnon to anybody, it's a weird comp, but he kind of reminds me of Larry Nance, but at the guard position. He kind of just does everything for you connectively on both ends of the floor.
It's like a Swiss Army knife. Like he just can do a lot of things on the floor.
So I'm really excited about, or I like what we've seen out of Summer League, apart from obviously Dalton Connect. But even that, I'm kind of like, let's just wait and see on that one, because we've already seen what he can do ceiling wise. So everybody else has sort of done what we've wanted them to do. And the Chris Magnon thing is sort of like a nice surprise, nice, pleasant surprise. And it's looking like he's going to be another win for this front office, I think. So,
so, real quickly on the Dalton part, just to like, am I concerned heading to the regular season? No. Is it good? How things kind of shook out? Not really, right? You would have hoped to see him, kind of. I always like to go back to the Max Christie, second year jump. Like, this dude came in summer league and looked like, okay, we can kind of show him the seat. He doesn't really need to show out there. Like, he's kind of shown some of those weaknesses and improved upon it in the offseason. So we didn't really see that from Dalton. And, I don't really mind him missing the number of shots he missed. Again, like you said, there weren't really a lot of point guards out there to kind of get him into rhythm. A lot of times it just saw him, whether it was on him, you can blame him or kind of like the scheme and the coaching staff, but like he wasn't involved in a lot of the offense. Like it was a lot of standing around and just kind of going through the motions. And, you can either blame him or you can blame whatever, but not touching the ball for some time. Like if you ever played pick up yourself, like it's just not going to work, especially if he's that type of guy. Obviously he's kind of working on it, but like, if you're Cole Swider, it doesn't matter where you're shooting from. And if you haven't touched the ball, it's just going to go in for you. That's just his skill set that he's kind of worked on. I think what's kind of disappointing is probably like the lack of attention on the defensive end. But I mean, like I already said it earlier in the pod, but defense is optional on Summer League. But some of the lapses were just kind of like really bad. But that's neither here nor there. I think once he gets back to the NBA and we see in the preseason, like he's playing alongside LeBron and Luka, and he knows exactly what his role is, I think he'll be fine. It was great to see Bronny pop. Definitely, like athletically, it was good to see. Like you're kind of starting to see the puzzle pieces of what type of role is out there for him in the NBA. I really think he is an NBA player. Like whether or not, like there's this nepotism. It's clearly not. I mean, he showed out like different levels of skill set and whatnot, and the big thing for me is just his ability to get to the rim, right? And I think, that ability to get to the rim is definitely going to be key for him to stay in the NBA. I think one thing I really liked is, taking on that Cooper Flag matchup, like being able to stonewall him on the post and just being really aggressive. And again, like, it's summer league, so it's whatever with defense, but like, I like that he had that kind of mentality to just take on that assignment. Whether or not, he can stop a player is one thing, but, that was really good to see. And I think he'll continue to prove. The one thing that's really like true in all of this, like in terms of the theme, is that the development that the Lakers program has, South Bay, like you clearly see like a projection with a lot of these guys like Koloko. You went into detail with that. And then even Quincy had a great season last year and he's crushing it in Brooklyn. Hopefully he finds a spot. I don't know if he got signed, either a two-way or standard deal, but I think I think he's also an NBA type player. So yeah, that's Dalton and Bronny. I'm really excited that they were able to bring back Koloko and now Chris Mignon. I kind of akin him to kind of the Jordan Goodwin replacement. There was all this crashing out on the timeline that we let go of Jordan Goodwin. I mean, we kind of went over the starters in the rotation. I don't know where Goodwin would really fit with all of that. I mean, in my opinion, something went really wrong if Goodwin is playing minutes on this team, especially assuming that we're keeping all these expiring contracts for now, because we're going to trade those at some point for what? A defensive player. So that whatever, if it's a wing player or if it's a point of attack type guard player, someone to add to the backcourt, we're going to fit that need one shape or form. So again, love the guy. I think Goodwin's definitely has a spot in the league, and good to see that he joined a non-contender and now he's on the Phoenix Suns where he's already played there before. So good for him. Yeah, I'm really excited about this Chris Mignon guy. And I think if he can get some burn during the regular season, I think something I talked about in my previous episode of the podcast, I really want to see how JJ approaches the season, because I would like for him to kind of open up the playbook, if you will, if I take the analogy from the NFL and football, and give a lot of these guys like playing time and see what's really out there and what can kind of stick. Because one thing that really resonated with me in the playoffs is the two teams that were in the finals, the OKC Thunder and the Pacers, how deep did they go in terms of their rotation? And I feel like you can only ever answer that question if you go to those lengths during the regular season, because how else would you be able to do that in these high stakes type of environment, right? So if you throw these guys into the fire early on,
with kind of lower stakes. Obviously, regular season matters, right? But it's still a long and grueling season. I like the chances because a lot of the players that are kind of on the back end roster, if you eliminate the expiring guys, there's a lot of skills there that I'd like to see on film, and I'd like to see in real time with the starters to see what you really have, right? To kind of put Chris Mannion out there for a few minutes. Bronny James, we didn't really talk about it too, but like, how's Adu Thero fit into all of this? Like, assuming his knee is good and healthy, I mean, I've seen his defensive film. Like, he's gonna have a role. He's gonna have a lane to play in this NBA. So yeah, I mean, I think things are on the up and up in terms of like the development and kind of like the back end of the roster. Trey Jamison just got recently cut, so they have one more two-way spot. I wonder what they kind of target with that. Obviously last season they held two spots with Jamison and Koloko, so two centers. I'd imagine. Actually, I don't know. I don't know what they kind of target with that third two-way. But yeah, I think. All in all, I mean, in terms of the summer league and the development, it was good to see. Good to see the direction that they're going in.
For sure.
Well, anything else on your end, or anything that you have, you want to vent, or you want to kind of bring to the forum here?
No, I think we covered everything. I mean,
yeah.
I think to wrap it all up, it was a very, very, I don't even want to call it solid, because no one would have expected that we'd come away with the haul that we did unless we made some trades. We didn't make a single trade. And I think that's what fans are like mad about. But it's like, if I had told you these are the three players that we're coming away with, and we got this guy in the draft, like, and I didn't tell you how or when, how long it took to get these players, you would have said, oh, that's a solid offseason. But because we had to wait for it, and we understand the agonizing pain between day 2 and day 5 when DeAndre Ayton finally signed, and then it took 20 days after that to get a Marcus Smart buyout or whatever. Like, yeah, everything ended up working out. I just think it's funny that even till the bitter end, we had something to complain about with Jordan Goodwin. It's like we can't just be like, it was a good offseason. We just have to haggle that last second of like, Jordan Goodwin, no. And, don't get me wrong, Jordan Goodwin, yes, was a loss. It's also a very replaceable loss, but we just literally replaced him. So I think we can like take a step back, breathe a little bit, and we got 14 people. We got 14 players on this roster. Like, let's stop haggling now about the 15th roster spot. Like, this is how we normally go into the season anyways. Like,
always,
this is it. If we have a consolidation trade in our bag, that would be a pleasant surprise. I doubt it, because you and I can go over all of the different trade iterations that we want to. It doesn't matter if the other GM is trying to ask you for 2 firsts to get Matisse Thybulle. Okay. Like, I don't like Matisse Thybulle that much. I love Matisse Thybulle. I'm not giving up everything that we have for Matisse Thybulle. And the last thing I'll say is, and I mentioned this on my last live, but you play fantasy basketball. I play fantasy basketball. I would like every Lakers fan to enroll themselves in a fantasy basketball league, and then try and make trades with people that you don't really know that well, and see how easy it is to make a trade. Because it doesn't matter doesn't matter how eager you are to get a deal done. It doesn't matter whether you think it's a perfectly fair trade. If the other manager does not think it's fair, it doesn't matter. If he doesn't want the players that you have, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You almost have to, and I mentioned this, you almost have to optically make it look like they got the better end of the stick in order to get a deal approved. At least those are the competitive leagues that I've been in. And so if you apply that to real life, that's why it's called fantasy basketball, because it tries to approximate what actually happens in real life. And the more you think about it, the more you're like, actually, this does make me understand what it's like to be a GM more. Because when I look at the amounts of acquisitions that happened in my very competitive league last season, it took so much effort to get a deal done with somebody. So many back and forths just to get that final deal through. But from the outset, because there weren't that many deals that got made, people are probably saying, oh, all these managers are just sleeping at the wheel, man. They're not even doing anything. But you and I know, I'm like, do you know how many hours I spent like laid up at 1:30 a.m. trying to, okay, what about this one? Still does, forget about it. You know, like, again, play fantasy basketball. You will gain a better understanding and perspective of what it's like when people like to joke around and like make fun of Rob Pelinka when he says those like trite lines, and he's like, you know, you can't buy a house if it's not for sale. Like, yes, that sounds like a silly excuse, but it's true. It's also just true.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, to just add the cherry on top of all this, right? So we lost Jordan Goodwin, Shake Milton, Alex Len, Keith Morris, and then DFS. One of those players, maybe Goodwin, 1.5 players, were playable on last year's roster and heading into the season. This year, we bring in, like you said, Ayton, Marcus Smart. I'm only talking about the new guys. Marcus Smart, Ayton, Jake Laravia, and then Adu Theorel. So functionally, if you look at last year's team, they finished 3rd in the West with 50 wins. If you functionally say that this team has not improved, then I question or I push back as to why. Because the team clearly is way more balanced as it stands today. And to get to that point, like you said, there were no assets moved in the process. We were able to make every move via signings, which is the best part, because now, as we continue to watch this season, we'll be able to see how the Lakers perform and be able to make the right move for the team. And I'm excited to see how that shakes out and how that plays out. So, Johnathan, thank you so much for joining my new show, Rings and Things. I really appreciate it. I'm sure I will have you on some more. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Thanks for having me on, Omar. I would happily join anytime you need me to hop on. Love doing this Lakers basketball stuff. You can catch me on X and on YouTube at Lakers Legacy Pod Everything. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, do a lot of breakdown stuff, do a lot of live stuff. Catch me on X at Lakers Legacy Pod as well. Podcast is also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thanks for having me on, Omar.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Peace,
Thank
everyone.
you. See ya.